This first story takes place in my dad's hometown in the Mexican state of Chihuahua in the year 2000. Living in Mexico was very different from living in the US, to say the least. Our family would move from home to home due to my parents being from different towns and their respective in-laws not liking each other. My father's aunt allowed my father and family to move into the vacant home, attached to hers for as long as we wanted. This small home was very typical for a rural Mexican home. It was made of mud brick, with an iron door and 2 windows next to the door. The inside of the home was composed of one large family room that was a mix between a living room and a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen that led out to the garden. Due to the small size of the home, my parents and I would sleep in the family room. My parents had their queen-size bed by the front door, and my bunk bed by the rightmost wall of the home. The night that I had my encounter was a night like any other. My parents and I ate dinner and watched TV in bed until we would fall asleep. I remember being awoken by a feeling of panic and fear. I felt paralyzed, and I could only move my head. Something told me not to look at the wall to my right, yet I felt compelled to look. I could not fight the urge to not look for long. And turning to look at the wall, I saw a woman's face come through the wall. The face was grotesque, to say the least. She had long, messy black hair, pale skin, white eyes, and her mouth was full of what I can only describe as shark teeth. I wanted to scream as she opened her mouth and got closer to my face. After what seemed like an eternity, the face vanished, and I could now move again. I immediately ran over to my sleeping parents, crying and trembling as I woke them. My mom woke up, asked me what was wrong in a sleepy tone. I told her what I saw. She simply dismissed it as a nightmare and let me sleep between her and my father. My dad told me years later that I refused to ever sleep in that bunk bed until my dad removed the top bunk and stored it in another home. Until this day, my mom believes that I simply had a nightmare or sleep paralysis, which I'll always deny, especially after she revealed that a woman died in that house. The next story takes place in the United States. I was 19 at the time, and I was working at a family dollar store up the street from my house. There was nothing weird or off about the store, aside from it being a low-income part of the city. 7 months into my tenure at the store, the other employees began telling me about weird things that have happened at that store. They even had a name for the ghost. They called him Jeff. I was very skeptical about the claims my coworkers had made. I just thought they wanted to scare the new guy, until one day, I experienced Jeff's presence firsthand. It was a Saturday. I was working at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift. I got the urge to go to the restroom. I headed over to the stockroom, where we had the employee restrooms, as the regular restrooms were disgusting, and often never working. I opened the stall, got to business. It was no more than 5 minutes when I heard someone exhale, and what sounded like boxes falling outside the bathroom. I finished my business as soon as possible. I checked the stockroom. Nothing was out of place. Out of panic, I immediately run back to the register and continued my shift as normal. The last 30 minutes of my shift came, and I needed to take a leak, and thus had no choice but to go and use the restroom in the stockroom again. The room had a very unfriendly atmosphere to it, and I got a headache as soon as I stepped foot in there. I took the fastest leak I have ever taken and ran out. The headache faded after 5 minutes of leaving that room. I went home and began to feel a cold coming on that night. The next morning, I woke up with appendicitis. I have no idea if this was what brought on by whatever was back there, but I still refuse to even look at that room when I go and shop there. This very last story happened 2 years ago now. I was home alone, drying myself after a shower, when the bathroom doorknob made turning sounds. I turned to see the doorknob turning. I knew nobody was home, so I ran out to see if someone had broken in. I checked every room in and made sure that all the windows were closed and the front door was locked. There was no sign of a break-in. I was the only one in the house. From the moments of my early pregnancy until my child was 7, we lived at my friend's mother's home before she sold it after her mother's passing. I had a few paranormal encounters. When I was pregnant, me and my friend, along with her mother, had a day off from work or school, and we were relaxing in the living room. We were watching TV, and I noticed my friend and her mom slowly falling asleep. I myself was falling sleepy, and thought it could have been a great time to have a nap. As I was drifting off to sleep, I heard the sounds of a child running from one end of the house to the other, coming from above us. This immediately woke me up, since I know it was a single-floor home, and the only room above us was the attic. My friend was also a single child, so there couldn't be any other children in the house. Another time was when my child was 2. She was being stubborn and did not want to go to sleep. I was really tired and it was late. I had to get up early. I told her, "Fine, don't go to sleep. I'm going to bed." So I turned off the lights, left her with her toys. Mind you, we're our room and everybody else was sleeping. This girl was not afraid of the dark. I fell asleep, hearing her moving her toys around. I woke up after some time and heard her toys moving around. I'm thinking that she's still playing with her toys, but then I turn to my other side, and I feel her sleeping next to me. For the love that is holy, I said out loud in a firm yet sleepy voice, "I'm tired, and it's time to sleep. You need to stop playing with the toys." As soon as I finished saying that, it went silent. I went back to sleep immediately. This happened after her mother passed away. My friend had gone to Taiwan with the money she had got from her mom's life insurance policy, so it was just me and my kid. She had managed to have friends checking on us almost daily. On the day, me and another friend took my kiddo and the dogs to the park. We lived 5 minutes away from the nearest park. After the dogs were exhausted, I took them home, and my friend stayed with my kiddo at the park. I went inside the house and straight to my room, went looking for my wallet, since we both wanted to go to the store. After I found it, I went to the living room and sat on the couch. At the angle where I sat, I was now able to look towards my room. I saw that I left the lights on, and told myself to get up to turn off the lights. After a minute or so, I saw the lights turn off, and the door close. Baffled, I was telling myself, no, that didn't just happen. To settle my mind, I told myself. I went to the room and turned off the lights 3 times. Quickly, I got a few bottles of water and left the house immediately. I told my friend what had happened, and she was also baffled. We went to the store shortly after, talking to her about it. When we got home, I saw the door to my room open. Freaked out, I locked at every room and checked the doors. Rooms were empty, doors locked, and nothing was missing. The pets were safe inside the house. I feel like I already ramble on, but there's a couple more stories that happen at that place. Usually a home can be haunted, but their home was built up from the ground up by a housing program. I believe maybe the land could be haunted, since there are extra guests in the home. The only person to have actually died there was my friend's grandmother. She had died when my friend was in grade school. Her mom had passed away 4 years ago at that hospital. So I am now 16, and have had a few experiences with the paranormal. The first one was when I was maybe around 9 or so. I had maybe also just turned 10, I can't quite remember. My sister, although I do remember, was 8, and it was maybe November or December. Anyway, for the sake of the story, when you walk into my bedroom, there's a wall directly to your left, and my sister's twin bed is only a few feet in front of you. The wall in front of you has 2 windows and is on the other side of the room. All the way to your right is my twin bed. The room was huge. You could have easily fit a queen-size bed in between our twin beds, and still, we would have had enough room to walk in between each bed. I slept with my head closer to the wall, with the door, and my feet were closer to the wall with the windows. I remember waking up right around 3 a.m. I don't remember the exact time, though. I found out that I could not move when I went to stretch. I noticed I could move my neck, though, and I slowly stretched it to look at my sister's bed. She wasn't there. At first, I just figured that she was in the bathroom, so I continued to look more up toward the door. Soon, my eyes focused on a tall black figure who I came to know as the Shadow Man. He is about 6'5", with a top hat and cane. No other features were visible at the time. He was completely still. Then, he slowly began walking towards me. I could hear his cane tap as he walked, as if my carpet floor was somehow wooden. I remember my heart beating in my chest as he sped up, and all of a sudden, lunged at me. Just as I thought he would have touched me, my sister walks into the room, and he faded away. She told me that she just had to go to the bathroom, and apologized if she had wakened me up. I could move again, so I rolled over and said nothing. We lived in that house for, another full 4 years. I never mentioned anything to my parents till about a year ago. We had already moved twice since that house, so I felt comfortable talking about it. Once I told them, they explained that they also experienced some weird things themselves. They said things would disappear and reappear in the most random of places. They would see shadows dart across the wall when nobody else was awake. When I told my aunt, she said that when she stayed in the guest room, there were multiple occasions where the covers would be violently ripped off of her. She said that she would always try to recreate it, and try to convince herself it was just her. However, she never could exactly recreate it. I believe that house is most definitely haunted, and I'm so glad we moved out when we did. Now, this second story takes place in the house we moved into, after the one in the last story. So, now, I'm about 13 or 14 in this one. I was at this stage of my life where I was on YouTube until about 4 a.m. every morning. I would be clueless about why I was always so tired for school the next day. I would pull the covers above my head, hold them there in between my pillows and my head. My phone would be resting against one of my arms on my chest, very close to my face. I would have one earbud out so I could listen for my parents' footsteps. That way, I could pretend to be asleep. This room was the opposite of the room at the previous house. It was so small you couldn't have done the splits in between my twin bed and the desk, which were across from each other. It was maybe 10 or 11 p.m. at the time. I was watching a YouTube video when I heard my door open. It was weird because I never heard anybody walk up the stairs. So, I slowly laid my phone flat against my chest, rolled onto my side grunting as if I was asleep, and just repositioning. I was now facing away from the door. That's when I felt a hand press against the covers and squeeze my shoulder, in a kind of loving way. I then heard my mom's voice say, "Good night, sweetie. I love you. Sleep tight." I wanted to say good night, so I lifted the covers up and nobody was there. I never heard my door shut, and there was no way she walked out of there that fast without me hearing her run. I wanted to get back to my YouTube video, so I shrugged it off and got comfy again. After about another 20 minutes, I felt a sharp jab in my shoulder where I felt my mom's hand earlier. It felt like someone poked me very hard with their fingernail. After it stinging for about 3 seconds, I heard someone almost yell, but in a whispery way, "Shh!" It freaked me out so much that I flew the covers off me, and I ran downstairs to find both my parents sitting on the couch watching TV. I asked my mom if she ever came to my room to say goodnight. She said no. I got even more freaked out, so I explained what had happened. My mom prayed over my room, put some oil crosses everywhere, on my door, on each wall, on my bed. We moved about a year and a half later, and now live in a different state altogether. Nothing has ever happened since, which I'm glad about. I just hope it stays this way from now on.